When it comes to taking risks, this guy's willing to stick his neck out for his friends. Here's your look at the brand new Mattel Master Universe Masterverse. Master Universe New Eternia Mekaneck. Captain of King Randor's submarine squadron, Mekaneck searches for the broken pieces of Grayskull in the darkest depths of the ocean, hoping to restore New Eternia to its former glory. Everybody on New Eternia knows that if you get Mekaneck for Secret Santa, don't get him a turtleneck. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the brand new Eternia Mekaneck, the tape measure is going to tell us that the figure stands at about 7¼ inches in heights, because you got to factor in, of course, the point on top of his head, and that makes a figure that's about 18½ centimeters tall. I brought in a couple of these figures before when we looked at Man-at-Arms, so I'll bring in a couple now for comparisons. Mekaneck, if you were to say put him next to New Eternia Ram Man, is going to be just a tad bit taller. He is also about the same size as Many-Faces, a figure that we didn't bring in when we looked at Man-at-Arms. Here's what he looks like with Zodak. Here's as well what he looks like, speaking of Man-at-Arms, the recently looked at Man-at-Arms. And like we did with that review, here's what he looks like with the Origins version, if I can actually get him to stand. Like with Duncan before, Mekaneck does come included with a little white bag of mystery. Although it's not really much of a mystery anymore, we can already see the contents off to the far right. Though to the far left, the figure comes included with a telescoping weapon. Very similar, in fact, actually to the one that we got here from the Origins, other than instead of actually molding it all in yellow plastic, they molded it very nicely in gold instead. Now, he can look out of this like a telescope, or you can also as well use it more as a clubbing bat. What's rather interesting, though, about the actual telescoping bat is that he also comes with extension pieces that work not only for the weapon, but also works as well for his neck. They're universal. I think that's pretty cool. You can take, by the way, the weapon, and because he already has gripping hands, he can wield the weapon in either one of them. Just clip it inside of his hand, and he holds it perfectly fine. Another weapon he also comes included with, more defensive than offensive. The figure comes with a shield. The shield has a printing on the front of an eagle, really nicely done. And on the back, though, while normally you'd expect this to slide up his forearm, there's a peg on the side here that actually clips right onto the side of his gauntlet. And you just clip it in place like that. Granted, it's not a very large shield, so what little defense he's actually going to be able to get from it. But like I said, it just fits into his... If you look at the hole, by the way, the hole is sort of more hexagonal, so it does require a little bit of pressure on your part to get the shield actually in his arm. But he holds it fine. I mean, you can also store it also on the back of his outfit as well. On the back of his armor, he does have a similar hole. You can take the shield and plug it just in place there. So if you don't have a plan to store the shield on his arm, there are at least storage place to store it on the armor as well. He does also come included with a couple of swappable hands. I don't think they're any bit different from the hands that we did get from... Actually, you know what? I just happen to have one of his hands still nearby. Yeah, it looks to be the same hand that we got included with Man-at-Arms, just, of course, colored more in a flesh tone than the green that came included with Duncan. And by the way, again, these can be swapped out. For me, I always just tend to put the closed fist hands into a bag. I always like to display the figure mostly more with the gripping hands instead. I did already say that the figure does also have these extension pieces. These were also something that were inside the bag. Each one of these, by the way, attached the same way, so you can detach any one of these. There we go. And they're all by ball joints. So if you want to have 3 of these, you can have 1 of these. Hey, why not? You can also as well take the 2, and because you get 3 on one, 3 interlocking ones on one, and you get 2 on the other. You can lock them, in fact, together, and you can have 1 long extension piece, if I can actually get it all the way in there. You have 1 long extension piece that now has 5 interlocking pieces, and again, all of these can actually move. They look to be very similar to all one another. I don't think they've done anything. Maybe they're a little bit different. They all look to be the same, though. This kind of reminds me of Stiltman. Not that Stiltman's obviously part of the Marvel Legends. He's not part of Master Universe, but Stiltman had a very similar idea that if you got the Red Ninja, you could just get extension pieces, and people went really stupid crazy when it came to displaying this guy. I saw some pictures of Stiltman going all the way to the ceiling. Luckily, you can stop at least at 5. I suppose if you did buy yourself more Mekaneck, I don't know why you really would want to, you could just continue the trend of having a much longer piece. Now with these pieces, I'm going to attach just the 2 of them right now. If you take yourself the telescoping bat, you take the end of it off, and you can see like the one end is on a ball joint, fits then into the hole here. Let's just take 2 for right now, just plug it in place like that. And then you take the other end and plug it in like that. So he now has like an extension piece that can kind of, I suppose, wrap around walls. Again, if he had long of these enough, I'm sure he probably could look inside of a window or kind of just over top of a wall. He'd be the peeping Tom of the Eternia. maybe that's not a good idea. But again, like you could take these if you wanted to have more than one, just attach like all the 5 together and just plug it in place. And like I said, now he has this really weird looking, I mean, nobody's probably in their right mind going to be displaying the figure with the telescoping bat like this, but still, it's a kind of a neat idea. And also, because it also used the exact same universal peg, you probably can already see where this is going. We're just going to put this back first so I don't lose this. You can also as well take Mekaneck and you just detach his head from the provided ball joint. Let's take his shield off too. I just don't want to get that in the way. And then you can take this piece and just plug it onto the end where the ball joint is still there. And then you just take his head and attaches onto the end of the ball joint. And now you can have Mekaneck now with 5 pieces. And again, like if you want to reduce this, you don't have to go to the crazy number of having 5 of these. You could just take off 1 link. You could take it all the way down to 1 if you really want to. But you can have Mekaneck with various different links for his neck. And again, because he does have the posability, any one of these can move independently from themselves. So again, you got some nice additional posability there as well. If you want to see what just 1 looks like, because maybe 5 is too much, just attach all the other ones. We'll just attach the only single one. Maybe if anything, I might just display Mekaneck with 1, because I don't want to go too crazy. I think that's kind of more that we're kind of getting into the field of Stiltman, I think, with the craziness of having more than 1 of these. But again, I kind of like the idea that they actually gave us as many as they did. And again, you can detach any one of these if you want. Mekaneck does look good with the extension here. I mean, again, you can have it displayed with it or without it, but again, I think it brings just a little bit more to the idea that the character does have a gimmick. The gimmick was in the original toy where you'd rotate the waist and the neck would extend. Sadly was the case, though, that when we did get ourselves the Origins version of Mekaneck, that unfortunately that figure, I think came included with the Drag Racer, didn't actually have, again, that working feature. So you could rotate his waist. His head wasn't going to extend up and down. You had to do something very similar, and you could just detach this. And by the way, also, in case you were wondering, yeah, you can take also these pieces that came included with the new Eternia version of Mekaneck and do, in fact, the exact same thing with the Origins. So you can kind of use, at least they have smartly decided to use the same ball joints. So if you want to have Mekaneck displayed, sharing again the wealth of all the things he comes included with, you can also display it as well with the Origins version of Mekaneck. Let's just go ahead and detach that all right now. As for the rest of the figure's body, while we kind of already have Origins Mekaneck in our hand here, you can see that they're pretty much exactly the same. Mekaneck's front torso also is one that got shared in the original line with Stinkor. So again, like they're probably going to, now we did get ourselves a Revelation version of Stinkor. I'm sure we probably are going to be getting ourselves a new Eternia version of Stinkor. And I'm sure, yes, that armor piece will be coming back in play for that. The rest of the figure's body, while the original one would have had more of the lighter blue, definitely get a nice, very nice metallic blue that they've used here for basically all the armor, all the body that's underneath his front armor piece. He has these gauntlets that are a little bit of a different blue than the rest of the blue above it. But again, I really like the use of the metallics. He also has a bit of a metallic silver striping here in his boots as well. The fur, I would imagine, at least the boots, would be the exact same as the ones we got from He-Man. But the body, I'm sure, is probably being used as well. I mean, obviously, it does come across a little bit more robotic, but I think it's just the way that they've used this type of plastic. I'm sure it's pretty much the exact same body as He-Man, or let's just grab He-Man off to the side here. Looking at the armor, it looks to be exactly the same, other than just, it kind of fools you to look at it. When you're looking at the blue, you think it's actually a different molding cast, but it looks to be the exact same. Even like the gauntlets down below are the same as He-Man. The armor piece can be removable if you wanted to. These are just a case you just detach the sides here. I'm glad that they're actually using these as pegs rather than actual straps. Straps always get really loose. I find these actually attach a lot easier also as well. And being that they also use larger pegs, it just makes attaching them home a whole lot more simpler. But again, like the rest of the body is pretty much going to be all He-Man's body or other Eternian figures. It's just a case like they've cast it differently in a very nice shiny plastic, and boy, does it look really nice here. So the figure's articulation, do we want to, well, I mean, starting with where we left off here, the figure does have a ball joint. I mean, any one, again, those individual links would be on ball joints, so those also freely move as well. The upper torso, although it's a little harder to get to because he's got the armor over top of it, would also be on a ball joint. There's a swivel here on the waist. The legs do, or those aren't legs, those arms also hinge out, and they can also rotate all the way around. There's a swivel at the bicep. The figure also, once again, does possess double hinge on the elbows, and the hands do rotate all the way around. Legs do split out. They're on ball joints. You can take the legs and move forward, move them back. Yes, yes. Swivel 3/4 of the way up the thigh. The figure does have a double hinge on his knee, and there's also the swivel there on the boots. Ankle pivot back and forth. There's also a nice ankle rocker, and I don't tend to usually mention this when it comes to Master Universe figures, but they do also have pegals on the undersides of their feet. So yes, you can use also as well a display stand if you wanted to. Mechanek's a nice looking figure, and the reason why I've actually got him way over here is once again to bring back in the original origins. I say original, I actually did have the original vintage Mechaneck. It's one of the last Master Universe figures I actually did have in my collection before eventually I sold them at a garage sale for probably like, I don't know, like 25 cents or something like that. But what I really think that was smart on Mattel's part, as I'm doing it right now, is that not only did they give you all these additional neck pieces that could in fact be used for the weapon that he wields, but it could also be used for his neck. It could also be used, although it's a little harder to see, you can also use it with as well the Origins Mechaneck. So while that figure did also have neck pieces, if you wanted to extend any one of them, you can simply just share the ones that we get provided with the Eternian version of Mechaneck and display them accordingly, depending on how, of course, you want to have the figures displayed on your shelf. I may not have as high of a neck here on the Origins version of Mechaneck, but what I might just end up doing is maybe splitting it, maybe having 3 on one, 2 on the other, or again, you can just attach it onto the weapon as well. Really fun the way that they actually made these swappable component pieces. Not that just ones that can be shared with the Eternian version of Mechaneck, but also ones that you can also use as well with the Origins. Again, really smart on Mattel's part. Having a little fun with Mechaneck in final looks, I've got the figure displayed using all 5 of the extension pieces. I'm only using 2 for the telescope, and I'm then using 3 for his neck, but it gives us an interesting way of displaying the figure. Of course, you don't have to fully commit to the idea of using all 5. If you want to even just use one, but you can also as well, thanks to Mattel smartly deciding to use the same ball joint size, you can also use these as well for the Origins version of Mechaneck, which I got to admit, I mean, yes, it was unfortunate that the figure never had the original possessed gimmick of swiveling the waist to extend his neck. I mean, I had still the original toy. Wish I still had the original version of Mechaneck, because he was like the last Masters figure I had in my collection. But I will say, like, having ball joints with each of those individual links gives you at least a little more freedom with what you can actually do with it. Instead of just having a post that comes out from the bottom of his neck, at least with this, you can have the figure displayed in a more interesting pose than just relying on the gimmick solely. I've also got the figure as well displayed here with the shield. I mean, again, you can either attach that onto the end of his forearm, or again, they put a provided peg on the back of his body that you can also attach it there as well. I should have really realized to bring in Revelation Stinkor to see if they actually are using the same body, and if that back hole was also used for his gas tanks. I'm sure, though, we are probably going to be getting ourselves another Eternia, new Eternia version of Stinkor, and really of the 2 7-inch properties that Mattel is doing for the Masters line. I still prefer new Eternia more so than Revelation or Revolution. But which of the 2 lines do you guys prefer a little bit more? The classic-inspired take of what we get with new Eternia, or do you like the cartoon or animated look of the Revelation and Revolution line? Let me know down below. Mechaneck is, as of right now, available either in stores. Good luck finding it as a Canadian collector, or you can do what I end up doing. I order this guy online, along with Master Universe Man-at-Arms that we've already had a look at, and one other figure that we will be looking at in an upcoming review. Speaking of reviews, though, if you guys did enjoy the one that you just finished watching, why not throw it a like? If you guys are loving, though, the content and want to stick around for some more Motu reviews, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.